What's up, Woodworking Nation? Welcome back to Armor of God Woodworks, man. We got a special day today. It's a Saturday before Thanksgiving, and we've got this humongous table that's getting ready to go out. So it's a two-piece top, just because it weighs so much. Each section weighs about 450, 500, somewhere around in there. So I really wanted to condense it down to some smaller parts, so the people that were building it for, if they ever decide to move it, they can disassemble it and, you know, get it moved to wherever they need it. So the people we built this for, they got a really big family, and they wanted this for their Thanksgiving feast. So, you know, here we are Saturday before Thanksgiving, and this will be finished up and ready to ship out on Tuesday and get to their house, because it's actually pretty close to our shop. So we'll deliver it on Tuesday, set it up, get it ready for them, you know, and it's going to be all good. So we had a little bit of a situation with this, and this is something that might help you learning in your woodworking or your business or whatever. When you're doing stuff like this and you're doing a specialty piece, it takes special pieces to make a specialty piece. So we had several requests of how they wanted this table to look. They wanted 4 pieces of wood across, and they wanted a total 14 feet in length. They wanted it to look old school, big bulky trestle. So, you know, there was some parameters that we had to meet. I had sourced the wood for this from, it was a tear down of an old building, and so we actually had some old floor joists and stuff that we were going to use to build this whole table, and we had some beams and stuff we were going to build the legs and the frame and, you know, this and that and all the different parts that go with this table. Well, long story short, I wasn't able to source those parts because they ended up not actually selling them. They used them back in the building. So anyways, that kind of put us in a bad situation. Well, called a customer, explained to me, look, man, you know, this is what's going on. I'm gonna have to source you some different wood from somewhere else. If you want to wait, fine. If you don't, I understand. Well, these customers are pretty good friends of mine, so they decided, you know, hey, we'll just wait because we know what we want, and we can't get a 14-foot table anywhere else exactly like we want it. So, you know, especially with it being 4 foot wide, it's just a big table. And so they waited on me. We were clearing a piece of property, found some huge long leaf pines, old growth, slow growth, tight rings, and so we took them to my local friend that's got a Woodmeister sawmill, and I think it's an LX50, and he sawed the slabs down for me, sawed down our frame parts and all that stuff. So we were actually able to source locally from within my community the tree to build this table that will stay in this community. So there's a little bit of backstory behind the wood, and people like that, you know, where this wood come from. They could I can show them exactly where the stump is, where this tree came from, and they can actually drive to it and look at it, you know, whatever they want to do. So there's a lot of nostalgia that goes in with stuff like that, and people appreciate that. And so if they've got a little bit of history to go along with their table, and it didn't just come from a big box store, bargain store, whatever you want to call it, they know where this wood came from, and they know the treatment that it got when it arrived here at Armor of God Woodworks. We take care of the wood, we dry it appropriately, and do all the things necessary to protect it, make sure that it's going to be a superb and superior piece, and a stellar piece for you to talk about. And it, you know, it brings up conversations when you're sitting around the table. Hey man, you know, tell me about this table. They know all the history behind it because I give it to them. So what we did was we had Southern Yellow Pine. We started out, they were 2 1/4 inch thick slabs, 14 feet long and 14 inches wide. We milled them to 1 7/8 inches thick, just to get all the planer marks out of it, make sure it was nice and slick, nice and level, everything was the same size. And then we cut them 7 feet a piece, and we put a 7-inch piece of heart pine in between the 2 slabs where they'll marry up and become one piece whenever we install this. And so we did splines, solid splines all the way through. Did it on my table saw with my dado blades, raised it up. There's about 1 inch thick, so, you know, I'm 3/4 inch thick splines, 2 inches wide, and bring the 2 pieces together, marry them up, lots of glue, and so you end up with perfectly level, beautiful slabs like we've got behind me. Once we did that, sanded it to start out with a 120 grit, got it all level, flat, you know, pencil marked it, got it how we needed it to look, rounded over the edge a little bit just so it's not such sharp corners, make sure there's no burrs and spurs left on it, and start out with 120 grit and sand it up to 220, leave it. Then we applied a Czar stain to it. It's a Czar gel stain, and it's called aged bourbon, just to give us that aged look on it, so it would, you know, it looks like an old vintage table. So right now where we are is I put the first coat of tongue on it yesterday, and I came in early this morning and I've got it sanded down to 320. Now, if you're like me and you build tables and you build furniture, and you know in the past you've gotten swirl marks in your finish, and you don't know where it's coming from, and it's driving you bananas, because it did me for a long time. It's like, where are all these swirl marks coming from? And I mean, I'm sanding it down to 800 grit and I've still got swirl marks. And do a little bit of research to find out that you need a vacuum sander. So what we've done is we've had this Merca. It's a Merca vacuum sander, and so it's the 5-inch orbital, and we've got a 320 on there now. It comes with this awesome vacuum cleaner, and it's a HEPA vacuum cleaner, and so it sucks all your dust out as you're sanding. So elimination of all swirl marks. So this table is perfect. I mean, you're not gonna find a table that's sanded more perfect than this one. I mean, it is beautiful. It's super slick. The Duke boys will slide across this one. So anyways, I love it. So once we stain it, we let it dry for 24 hours, come back in, and we apply a tongue oil finish, men wax tongue oil. It gives you not really a shiny finish, but it'll harden it up, and the wood just feels phenomenal after you do that. Well, once you stain it and put the tongue oil on it, you're going to raise the grain just a little bit. It's not bad. And let that dry for 24 hours, and then come back in the following day, and you'll feel all the burrs and everything. Well, you take this sander right here, and I don't have anything any higher grit than 320 on this sander right now. I like to try to get up to 600 or 800 on my finish, but it's easy to do that with this one. If you've got a 320 and you've got a concrete floor, you just run it on that concrete floor for a minute, and it'll take all the rough stuff off of the sandpaper. And so then you end up with just it's just a really slick piece of paper that you're going over it with. So it's basically like stropping a knife on leather. It's going to be like super slick. It's going to be perfect. But you don't want to burnish it at this point. You want to make sure that what you're doing is you're sanding the burrs off. So it's going to be a quick sand. You're not sitting there, trying to glaze it or anything like that. All you're doing is just going over and getting these burrs off. And you're going to sand it fairly quick. I mean, I've sanded both of these and the frame in about 10-15 minutes, because I'm not hanging it on there very long. I want the burrs gone. So and that'll protect, the first coat of tongue oil protects everything. So once you get those burrs off, they can't raise again because they're held down by the coat before. Keep those things in mind, that this is a cycle and a procedure that we're doing to make sure that this table stays perfect the whole time that they own it. So what we're going to do right now is I've got I buy about a box of rags like this. It's t-shirt material, and there's different ways you can apply this tongue oil. You can pour the tongue oil on the table, which I don't really recommend because you're going to end up with puddling. The way that we do it is just basically take a rag about this size, it's like 10 by 10 maybe. And it doesn't have to be perfectly 10 by 10, just whatever. Fold it up about, something like this that you can use. Lay it on the table. Shake the tongue oil up a little bit. Pop the lid off of it. Now what you're going to want to do is open your rag and pour the tongue oil down in the rag. Soak it in like this, flip it over, and make sure that this rag is thoroughly soaked from one side to the other. And once you're completely soaked through, you can see how I got all the oil on my rag. You're going to wipe it with the grain. Now what you really want to do is wipe the end grain first, because if you don't wipe the end grain first, any oil that goes over the edge, it's going to leave that streak on there. So you always want to get your end grains first. So just wipe it on there, nice and thick. Come down the sides. Anybody that didn't know, that guy that walked in front of the camera, that's my dad. I guess he had his earbuds in, he can't hear anything, so he had no idea that I was filming a video, but that's all right. So now what you're going to want to do after you get all these sides done, just come in here and make sure that the rag stays wet. You don't want to wipe it with a dry rag, so you're going to have to keep reapplying this oil a little bit. So you want to wipe it down, and you always want to follow the grain. And we'll come back and do a clean wipe once we get this done. And that way we make sure that we're not, overlapped or anything with our rag. I'm going to have to add a little bit more oil to it. You want to make sure this thing is soaked down really good. And you'll have to keep putting some on the rag because, as you wipe it, you're using it. So don't be afraid to use it. Tung oil is fairly cheap, and don't be afraid to just really get in there with it. But you're going to just keep going with the grain. And make sure you do this in an area where you can kind of get down and see the light so that you can make sure that you're covering every bit of this table. And you can really start to see it shine now. So now I'm going to come over here to this other slab and do the same thing. And when you're doing these tables, make sure that when you're working on them, that you keep them laying on a flat surface. You don't want it, where it can twist and warp and all that stuff. You always want to make sure they're laying flat, because if it ever twists or warps on you, it's really difficult to get that out without basically starting over. And you don't ever want to get this far into a project and have to start over, because I've had to do it before and it's no good. All right, so now that I've got the top covered the way that I want it, I'm just going to go back and forth, keeping pressure on it, because I'm trying to wipe up any excess that might be on the table. You don't want to leave this stuff puddled on the table, because if you do, it's going to leave a bad spot in it, and you can't get it out. So you want to make sure you're wiping off all the excess. Now what this is going to do is going to leave you with like a satin finish. And so once I get this coat on, I'll let it dry for 24 hours. Come back in tomorrow, maybe Monday, and sand it one more time. And then we'll finish it off with a lemon oil. Now lemon oil or orange oil, whatever you want to use on it, it doesn't really matter. As long as it's like a furniture polish oil. It doesn't really matter what you use on it. I prefer lemon oil because it's got a cleaner in it also. But that'll level out your finish. It'll bring the shine back to it, because once you do that last sand on it, it's going to dull it. And it's going to make it look, it can make it look uneven just because you got high grains and low grains, especially with this pine. But once you put that lemon oil on it, it'll even it all back out. So now we got a little bit of a shine on it, a little bit of a glare. You can kind of see it with the light shining on it and everything. And so what we're going to do next is I'm going to quit wiping this thing so it'll maintain what it's supposed to look like. And so we're going to come in here to the back, to the very back of the shop where I've got the frame set up. Now this frame is 10 feet, it's 10 feet long, and it's 36 inches wide. I got it upside down right now because I'm finishing it and I need to be able to finish all these parts. I'm not necessarily worried about the underneath side where the top's going to be. And whenever you're doing these things, always keep in mind that like the bottom side of the table top, you don't ever want to finish that, because then the wood can't breathe and you'll end up with a cracked table, warped, twisted. You always want to leave that bottom unfinished. If your customer doesn't like that, well, explain to them why you do it. You want the table to last as long as it can. You're working with a product that's still alive. This wood can move, it can expand and contract, especially whenever it leaves my shop. Like right now, it's 38 degrees outside, so it's probably about 55 in here. But once I get it into that house, it's gonna be 75 degrees. So with the temperature change, humidity change, and all that stuff, you know, this wood's gonna start doing its own thing. If it's sealed all the way around, it's gonna split the table right down the middle. So you don't ever want that to happen. You want it to be able to breathe, and you don't want to seal it completely up. It might sound crazy, but trust me, I've been doing this a long time, and I've seen them split down the middle because somebody sealed this all the way around. I've actually had it done to myself, but it was with a smaller project. It was like a cutting board or something, so it didn't really matter. And I just threw it in the trash and learned from that. So learn from me. Don't make the same mistakes. And then, you know, that way your products will be stellar and superb like they need to be, and you can charge accordingly for what you're doing. So I'm gonna take my tung oil and I'm gonna set it over here out of the way. I've reapplied it to my rag. Make sure you wear latex gloves with this stuff because it won't hurt you, but you can't get it off. I mean, you know, you spend forever trying to get this stuff off, and if, you know, somebody calls, you need to go somewhere, well, all you gotta do is take these gloves off, you're good to go. So I've sanded the frame and everything down to 320, same color stain, same application, and the oil is the same application. So you just start wiping. So we're going to, of course, start right here and make sure you get every surface and coat it all down. And make sure you get in the light where you can see, you know, across it, so that you know that you're covering every square inch of this thing. Because the last thing you want is whenever you take it to the house and you see that you got a dull spot on it, and then it's too late. And when you're staining, make sure you double check, triple check, quadruple check that you hadn't missed any spots, because it's easy to do, especially when you're working on something upside down and you got to get down there and look at it, and sometimes we forget. But just make sure you're double checking all your woodwork joints. If this thing starts acting crazy while you're working on it, stop, try to figure out what's going on and fix it from there. Because wood sometimes has a mind of its own and it'll do whatever it wants to. But just pay attention to it. The wood will talk to you. It'll tell you, it'll let you know if it's happy or not. And right now this table is very happy. It's getting a nice coat of oil on it. It's going to be a pretty piece. And I'm excited to get it to these people and let them enjoy their Thanksgiving feast around it. And don't ever be scared to do this kind of stuff, man. It's I mean, this is a big table, and I built it pretty much all by myself. And you know, hauling this big heavy material around, man, it's I mean, it's heavy, you know, and you got to joint it, plane it, glue it, and there's nothing more aggravating to me than gluing up a slab this big by yourself, because you are on a time crunch with the glue. And if you mess around and let it dry up just a little bit, you lose all your lubrication. And when you lose all your lubrication, you lose all your pull force. And then it's just as grunted in there. So usually doing tables, you got to work steady. You can't go too fast, you'll screw something up, but you got to stay steady. You can't slow down, because you don't have time to slow down. to make sure that you're really coating this thing good. You know, don't get cheap with the tongue oil. Make sure that everything's coated like it's supposed to be, because this is the final, you know, this is the final thing. This is where I guess if you want to say the rubber meets the road or whatever you want to call it. This will be the tail of the tape. Whenever you send this thing away and people call you back 10 years later, man, my table still looks great, I love it. Or they give your name out to other people that need gigantic tables or any kind of furniture really. All your pieces that you do are an advertisement of yourself. So this isn't, I mean, this is my career. So this isn't a one-time deal for me. This isn't, like if I build this table and screw it up, that's gonna be my legacy. So you always wanna make sure that you're taking your time with whatever you're doing, that your product that you're sending out is above par. And you take pride in what you do. And I always think about it like this: if I couldn't sit my family down at this table, I'm not gonna let you sit your family down at this table. But you always want to make sure that your products are superior, and you take your time with it. And whenever you install it, people can look at it and say that they know that you took your time, you did it right, and they're never gonna have to worry about this table. It's gonna be there for them. And it also helps build your confidence in what you're doing, give you a little bit of pride in what you're doing. There's nothing more satisfying than when you spend all the time that it's taken to get to this point, and you think about where you started with just a bunch of rough wood, looked like trash, and you turned it into something like this that people can use. And I know a lot of people that are in woodworking, you know, they get complaining about stuff. And a lot of times with woodworking, it's not the woodworking that bothers you. It's the time and effort, and it's also your customer. So make sure that you're picking your customers right. You don't have to do everything for everybody. If you're making a living at this, I know you feel like you do. I mean, I work for a lot of different people, but I thin my client base down to people that I know I can work with, people that are gonna stand behind me and they appreciate the work and they don't rush you. But that's really the worst thing that anybody can do to you when you're woodworking, is if they start rushing you, then your product's not gonna be what it was. And if you ever work with somebody that throws you under the bus or something like that, get away from those people. If they're not willing to stand behind you for your product, you don't need to be associated with them. You need to associate yourself with people that respect what you do and they respect you as a person. You don't have to work for everybody. I know when you start out you might have to. Once you get established, you don't have to do that anymore. You can kind of pick and choose your clients. All right, so we're pretty much covered on that. And what I always do is whenever I'm through with my rag, I take my glove and try not to get the oil on me and wrap the glove over and then pull the other glove off and kind of wrap it around, so that way I'm not having to get that oil all over me and it's wrapped up pretty good, you know. And I just throw it in the trash. So anyways, that's this table. Now we'll come back and sand it one more time, and then we'll finish it off with a lemon oil, and then we'll be ready to install this. I might do a video once we get it installed. I'll at least have the pictures on Facebook and Instagram. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Facebook, Lumberjack, and Instagram is lumberjack_AOG. and you can see the past projects we've done. And you continue to follow me on Armor of God Woodworks on YouTube. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. Give me a thumbs up. Comment down in the bottom. And you know, we always try to end our videos with a message. And so, you know, we're coming up on the Thanksgiving season. We're coming up on Christmas. You know, we're getting ready to celebrate the birth of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And to us as Christians, that's a very important time of the year. That's the time of the year when people have hope, joy, peace, love. You know, it's all encompassing because of what God did for us through His Son. You know, there's a lot of things I could say about you know, where I was in my faith 15 years ago versus where I am now. And you know, I just want you to know that no matter where you are in your faith or your relationship with Jesus Christ, it can always be better. But what you have to do is you always have to keep your faith in Him and forget about the stuff that's going on in the world, because once we start focusing on the world, we quit focusing on Jesus Christ. And as long as we stay focused on Jesus Christ, man, everything seems to be pretty good. And, you know, doesn't matter how bad things get, we've still got that hope. We've still got somebody with us to help carry us through. So as we go into this season of Thanksgiving and Christmas, always remember to keep Jesus Christ first in your life. If you have any questions about salvation, faith, Jesus, the Bible, if you have any questions about that, comment down below. I'll be glad to talk with you about it. I am pursuing a ministry, you know, career kind of. I'm still going to be doing woodworking, but you know, I'm looking into becoming a preacher, and I've actually been preaching at churches for about the past year. So, you know, if you have any questions about anything, just make sure you comment below and I'll get back with you as soon as I can. So anyways, y'all have a blessed day. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoyed the little message that we had. And, you know, just don't forget to like and subscribe to Armor God Woodworks, man, to follow these projects that we're doing. And I hope it helps you. We're all learning together. And I hope that the things we do on this video can help you get better with your woodworking. So y'all have a blessed day, and we'll catch you next time.